American science is under attack right now, right? So people need to understand that what we are doing is making long-term damage to the American scientific and innovation establishment.
Welcome to the Practivist Pod, the practice of activism made practical.
Today we talk about the mass protests all over our country and how your actions are making a real impact. We also talk about yet another signal gate from the most incompetent and unqualified Secretary of Defense in our history. And we give you some new guidance from this week's Chop Wood Carry Water list.
And then we have a great interview with one of our frontline California Congressmembers and former NASA Administrator, George Whitesides. I'm Jessica Craven.
I'm Steve Pearson.
Hold on. Stay strong. It won't be long. Yeah, yeah. We will build a better world.
Well, Steve.
Another week. Another signal gate, another beautiful, Easter weekend tweet by the person currently residing in the White House.
Oh my God.
So much ugliness. But before we get into all of that, I want to say something to our listeners. First of all, I'm so grateful for all of you. And we usually talk about this at the end of the show, but we've had a lot. I know if you're listening on Apple, you're getting a lot of ads. So I want to offer up our Substack, option for you. It's a great way to support our show and get an ad-free version.
Yeah.
Just want to talk about that at the top of the show because sometimes people don't listen to the end credits.
What?
Like me,
how could that be,
example.
Steve? How could they possibly not listen to the end? Sorry.
So we're on Substack, and we would be grateful for your support there.
Mm-hmm.
There, I said it. I did it. I pitched the Substack. How has your week been going? Did you get a break for the Easter holiday, or what have you been doing?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it was Saturday. I went to a protest, the April 19th protest. So I actually went to one in Beverly Hills, which was quite an experience. I did not realize the Beverly Hills had become such a Trumpy place. And this is actually a funny story. So I was invited to this smaller protest, and I didn't really know of one happening in downtown LA. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Beverly Hills. Great protests, about 100 of us there. It wasn't huge. She didn't publicize it widely, but it was good. And we were right in a very public strip along Beverly Boulevard there. So lots of tour buses going by, which was great because they were all really into it. And the tour bus drivers really into it, which of course makes sense when you think about what Trump is doing to tourism, right? Like destroying the industry. Oh, yeah. So, anyway, it was a lot of fun, but it was, of all the protests I've done so far since the election, which it feels like way too many, the most middle fingers and the most go Trump. I mean, not a ton, but more than I've encountered. Beverly Hills has gotten really Trumpy. And at the very end of our protest, these 4, maybe 5 dudes show up with MAGA hats on and a big banner. And we're like, oh, look, here come the counter protesters. So they unfurl the banner and it says, fuck Joe Biden. I was just like, really, you guys? Really?
I mean, I think the New York Times this morning was talking about Trump's first 100 days in office and how many times he has evoked Joe Biden. And even in his Easter message talking about, Joe Biden and, the guy's kind of obsessed.
It's so sad. It's so sad.
It's very sad.
Yeah.
And, but it also feels like this sad, desperate attempt to cling on to something that worked.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe
totally.
During his campaign,
for sure. Oh yeah.
When his numbers are tanking and his approval rating is tanking, and even his signature immigration issues are underwater now because of just the how cruel he is.
Yeah.
It's like, well, but Joe Biden's the worst, right?
Yeah.
Come on, anybody?
Well, his base loves it.
Old chestnuts.
Yeah, totally. And his base loves it. They go for it. They're like dragging out. I'm like, you realize this guy is like I mean, it was great. I wish I had gone and talked to them. That was my only regret, was that I didn't go over and film them, because I was like, this is Trump supporters in a nutshell. Like, they've got nothing. They're literally bringing out their old banner. Yeah, from like, as you said, times gone by when they could just bitch about Joe Biden. And that was enough to, that Trump got elected on basically, I'm not Joe Biden. And so I won't bring you the inflation that, he claims Joe Biden brought him. Although we know that's not true too. But yeah, it was pretty sad.
Banners are expensive, so
that's
I guess keep using it.
Absolutely,
while you can. But
but
that does bring an interesting point. We didn't intend on talking about this, but going back to Cornell Belcher's interview from a few episodes ago, this belies our point too, moving forward, that we are really going to have to, as a party, like we're getting a lot of enthusiasm and anger and activism around being anti-Trump.
Right.
But we're really going to have to give voters something to vote for too.
Right.
It can't just be it can't be us unfurling our, fuck Trump banners,
Yes.
when we get to these elections. It's got to be about what we stand for and what we're going to give people too, and giving people a reason to vote. So that's our task moving forward, is doing both. If we do both, as Cornell Belcher said, and if you didn't get a chance to listen to that interview, by the way, anyone, please go back. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
But if we do that, we have a real movement, and I feel really strong about the midterms.
Yeah.
But,
well, and that's what AOC and Bernie are doing right now, I feel. And some of the other, all of these Democrats who are going into purple districts or Republican districts and doing these town halls. I mean, Maxwell Frost is out there and Chris Murphy. And I feel that this is partially what they're doing, is starting to build a positive vision, as well as just talking about how awful Trump and Republicans are. And that is really important. People do need to hear, like, okay, what are you going to do? Like, it's good. I feel like we're sort of as a country, we're like an alcoholic that's bottoming out. And, Democrats get to go out there and be like, there is another way. And we're in a bottom. It's very painful, but it is, to start to think about what is it going to look like when we get out of this and start rebuilding. We can almost generate some, not excitement, because I don't think anyone can be excited right now, but some hope, cautious optimism that we can actually build something better out of the ashes.
Yeah, some hope. I mean, that's the thing. This is a reckoning like our country has never seen.
Yeah.
And, I really do feel like we'll get through it. I don't know what the timeline is.
Yeah.
But I know that we'll get through it.
Yeah.
And I know that we will be better. And stronger for having experienced it and for having learned about ourselves and who we are as a country and what's important to people and move through it. So I do feel like we'll get through this and be stronger. Yeah. But I don't know exactly what that timeline is. So so we just keep putting one foot in front of the other in the meantime.
Right. Day at a time. What about you, Steve?
And I went to Saturday a town hall with our representative Jimmy Gomez.
Oh, good. Yeah, I went to one of his other town halls. They're good. Yeah.
I opted to do that, and then was going to go to the protest downtown. But I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it here live on the podcast. Mm-hmm. I was tired.
Yeah.
So I didn't go.
Yeah.
I went home, and my daughter was home for the weekend, for the holiday weekend. So I decided to spend time with my family.
Yeah.
And I highly encourage that. We need everyone on the streets. We need everyone active. Well, this is the long haul. So I'm going to keep, singing from that pulpit, to take care of yourself and prioritize your family too.
Yeah.
So
it's important. I know. I sometimes think, like, am I missing my kid's entire childhood because of Donald Trump? Like, don't want to do that. So it is important those times out.
I did that the first time around.
Yeah. Right. No, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It's very important to put family.
First time around, I jumped into this work and I was like, I have to be here. And I'm doing it for them. So I'm not going to miss anything. Yep. And, but I did miss a lot. And I'm not doing that this time around. We're doing this together as a family. So
good. I love that. So
anyway, let's get to the meat of the week too. Not that wasn't meaty, but all of these Tesla takedowns, rallies, the town halls, the empty chair town halls, they're making an impact.
Yeah.
And specifically, we're looking at Tesla right now and, doing a lot of, but
yeah.
what's behind my silly laugh and, feeling good at someone else's demise. Why don't you tell us what's really happening with Tesla right now?
Well, we got their earnings report, which has been long anticipated, came out yesterday, and they have had a 71% drop, which is basically what it sounds like to me. I did not listen to the entire earning report, but it sounds like if they did not have the carbon offset money that they have coming in, because I guess a lot of companies pay them to offset their emissions, which I didn't even actually know was a thing in this country, but I sort of knew it. But anyway, but that's like where most of
like
their
our cap and trade.
Yeah, I guess it is. But so that's where most of their money is coming in. That's the reason they're still profitable, but their auto sales have tanked. Like there's really no word for it. And people can say, well, it's, maybe the protesters had a little impact. No, the protest, it is absolutely 100% directly correlated to what we have been doing. And it's so thrilling to watch because you don't always see the bad guys get their comeuppance, but it does seem that Tesla is going to bleed and they're going to keep bleeding until, he is out of the company. And I'm not even sure they'll stop bleeding then. I don't know what they can do to repair their brand after Elon Musk. So it was really good to see.
And it's great to see, and I'm gleeful about it, but I'm not gleeful. There's obviously, you and I talked about this when we were at the Tesla protest together before. A lot of people bought Teslas early on, because they wanted to do the right thing. Yeah. They had an opportunity to buy an electric car that, aligned with their values, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who work there and a lot of shareholders and all that who feel the same way. And so I'm not like gleeful for hurting them, no. But what I am gleeful about is we have leverage points. Yeah. And when we have this class of oligarchs that is, personified by Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, who has bought our government and has bought his position of power within our government, to know that we, the people, do have leverage. We have pressure points that we can apply and be effective. Yeah. This is proof of that. So that's what I'm really gleeful about. And we see it with Target also, and with these companies and corporations that are kissing the ring and are eschewing their DEI initiatives and aren't standing up for our values. We're really paying them back by showing them, pain in the marketplace. And that's where we, as people, have a lot of power. And so that's exciting to me. Yeah. So keep it up, everybody. Yeah.
And I am so happy Target's foot traffic is down for the 8th straight week, I think, or the 10th straight week. So they're definitely, profits are declining dramatically and all that. I would really like to see people do the same thing to Amazon. That is my personal desire. That is another company. I mean, Jeff Bezos has been so out front supporting Trump. It's another no-brainer. Yeah. And I know it's a tough ask for a lot of people. But again, like if y'all can, just consider it, just, getting rid of your Prime and shopping elsewhere. Like these are the big behemoths we need to take on. And we've taken on 2 successfully so far. So I'd love to see Amazon be the next one. But that's just me. You can get almost everything somewhere else. Although I will make a confession just because I think it's important for people to realize, like, we don't have to be perfect about this stuff either. And if we feel like we have to be perfect, sometimes we won't do it. So about once a year, I will get something on Amazon that I can't get anywhere else. I just, it's like, well, if I want to buy this thing, and I will admit that this week I did, rent the movie Conclave, and I could only get it on Amazon. So I needed to see Conclave. I just had to. After the Pope died, I was like, it has to be today. And I had the time. So I did that. So again, like these kinds of little, like, okay, it wasn't, so that's not perfect, but that is the first time I've shopped at Amazon in over a year. So I'm going to be okay with it. And now I'm going back to my boycott now that I've seen Conclave, which by the way is a very good movie. But yeah, really, so, we don't have to be perfect. The perfect is the enemy of the good. I think that usually we do try to boycott perfectly, but sometimes, we have to make a little accommodation and then we just go right back to doing what we were doing. And that's still very effective. So Speaking of imperfect things, sorry. Go ahead. You take the transition.
Far from imperfect. No, that was a good one. Yeah. And I don't want to talk about Pete Hegseth too much. God, just like the most incompetent, unqualified. And we've seen some douchey people too, but can I just say he's the douchiest secretary?
Is it okay to call him a ball sack? He's a ball sack. He is a loathsome individual, and he's really stupid looking too. And I'm sorry to say that. I don't like to attack people on their looks, but just every time I look at him, I just feel angry. And yeah, he's also covered with really vile tattoos. And, you know, I think that aren't we supposed to be shipping people like that off to El Salvador? Isn't that what we do now? So
good point.
Goodbye, Pete. No, it's crazy. And as soon as I saw the headline, I just thought, well, of course he did. Like, of course his brother and his wife are on this. Like, this is a guy who is going to keep fucking up until he's gone. And that's what, to me, is so amazing about it, is that Trump thinks, like, well, no, I'm going to like, he's not giving up on him. And it's just, it has such a feeling of inevitability to it for me. One thing after another is going to keep coming out about this guy. Like, it will never stop. It will never stop because he's that guy.
Yeah. And Trump, you know, he tries to reward loyalty. So, you know, Hegseth has been loyal to Trump, but Trump also loves to throw people under the bus when it's hurting his own thing. And so that's what's going to happen here. And there was some NPR reporting that the White House is looking for a new Secretary of Defense. That was denied by the White House. But, you know, I mean, this like, it's silly to even talk about hypocrisy with these Republicans at this point. Like, the hypocrisy seems to be the less of it all. Yeah. But the fact that he was using his personal phone on this too. Yep. You know, this is the central issue. They've been, you know, trying to put Hillary Clinton in jail over and spend all this time and all these resources about, and this is a million times worse, and literally is putting service members' lives directly at risk.
Directly. Yeah.
And the, you know, the Republicans who are staying silent on this and are backing this guy up, you know, there's no other word but shame. Shame on them, for, you know, putting your own political agenda ahead of the basic national security of our country. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and it is what Lisa Murkowski said. I mean, that video of hers made me so angry, honestly. You know, we're afraid. Well, then resign. It's like, if you can't stand up to the Trump administration, stop being a senator. Then get somebody else to do it. I find that really pathetic. I mean, I guess good for her for admitting it, but like, yeah, okay, you're afraid, but like, do it anyway. Or go get a job as a lobbyist. I mean, these people, it's not like they're going to be out of work. It's not like they're not going to, you know, they'll get picked up by a lobbying company immediately. But this Republican, like, well, privately, they're all saying that he's, you know, Hegseth is a disgrace. You know what? We don't care what you're saying privately. It is what you do. It is how you vote. It is who you vote for. The fact that every Republican, except for 3, voted to confirm this guy. Yeah. Shame on them. Shame on them, and they have to live with the consequences, which could be dire.
Exactly. Yeah. And I forget who it was, and maybe you'll remember this, who said, if you're an elected official and you're not willing to stand up for our country and do what's right, go ahead and accelerate your life plan. Because so many of them are there to, you know, get into a position where they can go get a cushy, you know, consulting job or, you know, lobbyist job. So go ahead and accelerate that 5-year plan of yours and go get that job now. Get out of the way for people who actually want to stand up for people and take care of this country. Yeah.
And it's not like every Democratic lawmaker doesn't get death threats every single day from Trump supporters, and yet most of them are standing up anyway. It's like, you know, as I always say, do you know how many death threats AOC gets every day? And she's out there, you know? It's just not an excuse. That's part of the job, unfortunately. So accept it or resign.
I was at an event Thursday night with Jamie Raskin here in Los Angeles, and this had just her comments, Murkowski's comments had just happened that day. And he was talking about the different levels of death threats that he gets constantly.
Sure.
You can only imagine,
Yeah.
and he's not going to back down.
No.
So
I mean,
I'm grateful to our folks who do that and show some courage, because, we're doing it.
Yeah.
We're doing it. So.
And I just want to say, as far as actions go, please keep calling your representatives about Pete Hegseth. This is something that just needs to be a continuing drumbeat until he's gone. Just every time, if you call about something else, your senators, because I guess your representatives in the House can also call for him to step down. But just mention it as you finish your call. Also, just tag it on at the end there every time you call, because that guy has got to go. And they'll, they're marking down what you're talking about. So just keep calling about it, please. Even though it feels like Trump will never fire him, I think he will, if we keep up that noise. So.
We got to keep up the noise.
Yeah.
I know he won't if we don't keep up the noise.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
So keep doing it. Keep making those calls.
Yeah.
And there's some other calls to make. Indivisible put out some new guidance for, holding attorneys general. I always get that one wrong.
I know,
it's
that one's hard.
Attorneys general.
Yeah, it's weird. And then the S after the Y is also kind of weird. Yeah, I'll talk about that. So I just got this toolkit from them. It just dropped yesterday. So what they are suggesting, it's an attorneys general, Democratic attorneys general. So what they're suggesting is that we put out a lot of pressure on Democratic attorneys general, who I must say are already really stepping up. Some of them are most of them are doing an extraordinary job. And I'm sure most of you know this, but if you don't, these are the top, basically, the top cop in their state. They're initiating all kinds of lawsuits and they're doing great work. But what Indivisible is recommending we do is reach out to them and really ask them to fight these ICE abductions, the ICE abductions that are targeting, residents, students, activists for their political speech. So they're asking us to ask them to defend the ones who have already been detained, put protections in place for people who, have yet to be detained. And it's a good effort. They've got a toolkit. You can make a phone call and, they'll look up the number for you and they've got a script and then you can send an email. So we'll put that in the show notes. Well worth doing. And I will just say Democratic attorneys general are really important, and it is worth, following and supporting, the Dem AGs, which is sort of the organization that supports attorneys general, candidates, because the Dem AGs do great work. And when we get a Democrat elected to that spot, it changes everything. Republican attorneys general are the ones who are suing to block abortion rights. They're just doing horrible, horrible things. And when we get Democrats in those seats, they can fight to protect us. And sometimes lawsuits are the only thing we have, as we've seen repeatedly in this situation. So pay attention to those races, I guess is what I'm saying. They're really, really important. My favorite Democratic attorney general is Dana Nessel in Michigan. But there's so many great ones. They're just, it's an important position. They do really great work. So.
Yeah, no, I don't have much to add really, other than, this is where our blue state attorneys generals can really make an impact in fighting back against the administration. And we saw this happen the last time around too. And at the very least, our, ability to slow down some of these egregious actions was increased because of these lawsuits and because of the coordination. Also, when the Dem attorneys generals can coordinate together on something, it's even more powerful, and they're starting to do that now. So we need to encourage that.
Yeah. Tish James, she's another amazing one, very powerful. So anyway, totally. It's important. Got to use the levers of power that we have, right? These are my levers.
And we're using them. And it's been giving me a lot of hope.
Yes.
Because, 5 million people protesting last weekend. Again, we've got May Day coming up with another big protest. And, keep at it, everybody.
May Day is going to be, working. I feel it. It's going to be huge. I have a really good feeling about May Day. I think it's going to be gigantic.
Me too.
Yeah.
So speaking of hope, what's your reason for hope this week?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you just really quickly about this thing I did yesterday. So you guys have heard of StoryCorps, I'm sure. It's like a NPR thing. I don't know if it is directly affiliated with NPR, but they basically gather stories of regular Americans and archive them. So that they have this massive archive of Americans just talking about their lives, and it's really amazing. But I found out recently that they've got this sort of subsidiary program called One Small Step. And what One Small Step does is they find basically a conservative American and a liberal. It doesn't have to be like Democratic and Republican, but, sort of from opposite ends of the political spectrum. These are all volunteers. They're people who have signed up and volunteered to do this. And then they bring them together for a 50-minute interview conversation, which basically there is a moderator there, but you have some questions that are prompts, but you don't talk about politics. You talk about anything but politics. And oh
man,
yeah, I've often thought about something like this. No, God, yeah. I mean, I've often imagined something like this as being like one thing that needs to happen, just because both sides, I think, have sort of come to the conclusion that the other side is so awful that, like, they're not even human. And it's unfortunate. Right. But if we're ever going to sort of get through this, we're going to have to find a way to at least, we don't have to agree with them, but like somehow humanize the other side. And that's, I think, what this is striving to do. Anyway, I had my call yesterday. It was pretty amazing. I met with a Methodist minister, a female Methodist minister in Iowa. Who had like crosses all over her walls. And we really did kind of find that we had a lot in common though. And it was pretty wonderful. I don't know if it changed, what it changed exactly, but I know that like if you said to me like some minister in Iowa now, I would probably be more likely to imagine her than I would just like a generic white dude, who was like a MAGA minister. And she actually was very supportive of LGBTQ people, and it was kind of great. So they're looking for volunteers on both sides. So if it's something you feel like you want to do, go to the StoryCorps website and look for the One Small Step program and sign up. It's amazing. They'll walk you through the whole thing. And it was kind of a wonderful experience. I would do it again in a heartbeat. So that was mine. What is yours?
I love it.
Yeah, it was cool. What's yours,
I love
Steve?
it. I love it. Yeah. And we'll put the link on our show notes too. So if people want to sign up, I signed up right after I saw that you did it. Okay. And I filled out the thing, and I've already been matched with someone to talk to. And
oh, cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it reminds me of a lot of the deep canvassing that we did back in 2017.
Yes.
And where we were specifically talking about values and not like political issues.
Yes.
So typically if you're canvassing, especially early, you're kind of asking people, how do you feel about the economy? How do you feel about immigration? Right. Or just these, political topics. But this was, focused on values. And I think we had a similar result where we weren't necessarily in that first conversation moving people to be like, okay, I'll vote for a Democrat now.
Right.
But the conversations always came away with, you're not so bad.
Right.
And you're not so bad either.
Yes.
And I enjoy talking to you and bridging that gap.
Yes.
And we just need more of that.
Yeah.
This is a giant gulf that will continue to infect our country and get even deeper if we're not willing to reach out with compassion and seek to understand. And that gets into my sort of reason for hope, but what I wanted to talk about, what we obviously saw that Pope Francis passed away, who, I'm not into organized religion. I consider myself spiritual, and I appreciate a lot of what, religion gives us. My biggest problem with organized religion is I don't trust people.
Yeah.
I don't trust the messengers
who weaponize it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But as far as the Catholic Church goes, Pope Francis was a pretty revolutionary pope and did a lot of really great things. Moving, supporting LGBTQ rights within the church and being a lot more liberal than his predecessors. Unfortunately, he did still have a hard stance on abortion. But, he took, his name after Francis of Assisi. And that is my favorite prayer and something that I try to live my life by. And that's the Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And that's how I try to live my life. That's what's given me the most satisfaction, is being of service. And I think it goes directly with the conversation that you were just having, where we are reaching out to people that we may not align with, but looking for common bond and seeking to understand and leading with compassion and love. And that's what we need to do. So,
yeah. That's beautiful.
I
am
my hope
very sad that JD Vance killed him. That is really sorry. I just had to throw it in there. But yeah, no, that was
and he did it.
I did. I had to. I mean, he did, right? It's
he did, and he did it to wipe the news cycle of I don't even remember. I think it was the Hegseth thing, but maybe there was it was Hegseth.
Oh yeah, that's true. It kind of ate the news cycle. But yeah, well, JD Vance is going and spreading misery wherever he goes, but that's another subject. But yeah, that was beautiful. And, that's why I watched Conclave after the Pope died. I was like, what happens now? And then I learned all kinds of things, because I was not raised with religion and know virtually nothing about these things. So, yeah, but he does sound like he was an amazing, amazing guy, for a Pope.
Yeah.
Not that popes are bad. I just, sorry. Okay. All the Catholics are mad at me now. I just mean, I know nothing about this stuff. So
I get it.
He sounds amazing. Yeah.
No.
So,
Anyway.
Yeah. So that's that.
All right. So that's that. And, with that, we will transition now to, my friend, who I had the good fortune of working on his campaign and helping him get elected, the representative from CA 27, Congressman George Whitesides. George Whitesides is the congressmember from California's 27th District, formerly CEO of Virgin Galactic, and was NASA Chief of Staff under President Obama. In 2024, he flipped the last remaining Republican-held seat in Los Angeles County. Congressman Whitesides, thank you so much for being here.
Great to see you, Steve.
It's great to see you too. Full disclosure for our listeners, I had the honor and privilege of working on your campaign and haven't really seen you, I don't think, since your swearing in back in January. So I know you just got back from a trip to the Middle East. How are you holding up in general?
A little bit jet lagged, but inspired by the amazing service of our young servicemen and women over in the Middle East. We went to Iraq, Baghdad, Erbil, which is in sort of the northern part, Kurdistan. We went to the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, visiting, the Marines, Army, Navy, special operators, the folks who are doing such important work in that part of the world. And just got back a day and a half ago.
Incredible. Wow, what a trip. You've been in office now for a little over 100 days. Right out of the gate, you found yourself on the front lines of a devastating fire here in the LA area, dealing with a budget that would slash funding for Medicare, Medicaid, Elon Musk and Doge's efforts to dismantle our government agencies, including Social Security, and an administration that's ignoring and denigrating the courts. So maybe not exactly what you had bargained for when you signed up for the job, but with all of that, how have you managed your first 100 days in office?
Yeah, it's been a crazy period for the country, and I know a lot of people are very scared, and I get it. I feel that deep sense of concern that so many people feel around the country and in our district. It was just a few days after January 3rd where we got sworn in that the fire started. And that was, such a terrible time for so many people. So many people are, living with the terrible aftermath. So many friends of ours, who have lost houses or who have been forced to relocate, whose kids have had to, relocate to a different school. And of course, for the roughly 30 people who lost their lives, it was just a terrible, catastrophic moment in time. And Los Angeles will never be the same. We have to work super hard to help those people get back on their feet, to rebuild where they want to rebuild how they want to rebuild, to get their school communities back together, to get their church communities to get back together, to reestablish some semblance of normalcy for people who have, in many cases, lost everything. And so that was, really the main focus of our first month, and remains a major thread of the work that we're doing now as we try to defend, democracy and the rule of law and these institutions that are under attack. We cannot forget the Angelenos who need our help now.
I think that's really important too, because of course there was a great outpouring of support for everyone when the fires first happened. And as in any tragedy that happens, there is often like a good deal of support and almost an overabundance of support. But now you have so many families who were, in temporary situations, who are now finding places to move into, and they need furniture, they need clothes, and a lot of that support has, gone elsewhere as sort of as human nature. But it's really important to know that we are just starting to rebuild. And what I love about thinking locally, especially when we have so much horrible stuff happening on the federal, to our country, is you get to see stories of just simple constituent services, like, families who need help, who are able to reach out to your office and get connected to the services they need. And you've been doing a lot on the ground there. So, how's that felt to be, obviously you have a background. You founded Megafire Action, co-founded Megafire Action. You have a background in wildfire resilience, and I want to talk more about that because we have Earth Day coming up too. But just on a core level, being able to be in a position now as an elected official to really impact people's lives and connect them with the help they need, how has that felt for you?
Well, we supported an event that really Assemblywoman Pilar Schiavo led the charge on in Santa Clarita, where we were encouraging folks from the community to bring, basic items like you're talking about, whether it's toiletries or food or toys, to a central collection point. And there was an incredible turnout, and it warms your heart when you see the goodness of the communities that we're a part of. And, I see that same goodness in the activism that we're seeing now. We just had an incredible set of rallies, both in Santa Clarita and in the Antelope Valley, these hands-off rallies where, you have people who have never protested before, or who have rarely protested before, coming out because what they're seeing is something that they have never seen before in their lives. I had an elderly grandmother, 75 years old. She came up to me and she said, "I've never been to a single protest before in Santa Clarita.
Wow.
But I knew that I had to be out today." And I was so moved by that because, you have these incredible communities of people who are decent, who want to help their neighbors, whether it's the fires or whether it's the homeless or other folks who need a little bit of help, folks who need help with their, their groceries or their housing, whatever it is. And, they just see this national mood that is, putting scientists under attack. It's putting Social Security under attack. It's putting our, good men and women who work at the VA under attack. We have so many folks inside our communities who are veterans, and, the idea that cutting whatever it is, 80,000 people out of the VA isn't going to hurt services is absolutely crazy, right? And so, it's a very scary time for a lot of people. It's a dark time. I think people don't really know exactly what they can do, but they're starting to be more active, raising their voices, because they just don't see any alternative, that we have to step up and we have to raise our voices and we have to make clear that what we see going on is not acceptable and it's not who we are as a country.
Yeah. I want to ask you a couple of things about what you just said. First of all, I mean, it just seems like you mentioned so many of your constituents that are being affected by all of this, and people showing up to protest who had never protested before. Your seat is going to be tightly contested in the midterms. I just can't imagine that taking away access to healthcare and SNAP programs and threatening Social Security is popular in your district. I mean, what are you hearing from your constituents?
People are scared. These Medicaid cuts that are now almost certain to happen. The Energy and Commerce Committee, this is sort of getting into the weeds, but the Republican majority, the extreme Republican majority in Congress voted for, a cut to that category of the budget of nearly $900 billion. So approximately $1 trillion cut. And if you look at the way that category is constructed, it's almost impossible to make those cuts without cutting hundreds of billions of dollars from Medicaid. We have, hundreds of thousands of people who use Medicaid in our district. And, it's not just the elderly. It provides services for a huge number of kids. It provides services at home care for a huge number of families that require that so that other adults in the family can work. We have so many people who are scared that they're going to have to stop working because their Medicaid at home services will be interrupted or reduced. Obviously, the attack on the sort of the organization of Social Security is, a catastrophic existential risk to so many seniors who depend on that. I have been hearing, real stories of checks not arriving, showing up late. You've read the stories about how they're trying to reduce service to cut people out of the system. This is not what we paid into, This is not really the social contract that has been the case for decades in America. And so, whether it's the young, whether it's the old, so many different parts of our society feel like they're under attack. And that is, what we are trying to take back to Washington is the reality of life on the ground and how this is affecting real people. And more importantly, how this will affect people going forward. It's a very scary time.
Yeah. And so the pushback has been there, and I agree with you 100%. We need to be out in the street making noise and showing that this isn't who we are as a country. But I'm curious, you mentioned the hands-off rallies. We had another one last weekend that was big. There's been a lot of empty chair town halls where your colleagues on the other side of the aisle have not been willing to do town halls, and other members have shown up and done town halls in their districts that have been extremely well attended. Are those protests resonating in Congress? Are your colleagues nervous on the other side of the aisle? I mean, there's a lot of swing district folks who, I think Valadeo decided not to vote for the budget bill. But what are you hearing? Is it resonating with your colleagues? What's happening on the ground?
I think it is resonating for sure. I think that my colleagues, on the other side of the aisle, know that these dramatic cuts to Medicaid, hurting the, Social Security system, cutting tens of thousands of people from the VA, they know that these are profoundly unpopular policy decisions. And I think we're starting to see some cracks up to this point. The Republican caucus has been quite unified that, yea, verily, they want to make these huge cuts that are going to be so painful to so many Americans across the country. But you're starting to see people speak up just here and there. Keep in mind, Steve, we only need like 3 votes of Republicans in the House to stop this stuff. So it doesn't take a lot, but we do need those 3, right? And if we can get 3 around any of these different issues, we literally can stop it in its tracks. And so, it's important that people keep raising their voices, around the country, because really that's the main way that we're going to be able to convey to folks in Congress who are our elected representatives that this path is not the path that the American public wants to go down. I think at the end of the day, what people are really focused on is economic issues and the cost of living. And what we're seeing is an administration that is not doing anything to address those issues. In fact, they are taking these, huge policy swings at things that are going to raise the cost for most American families, right? These tariffs are already showing up in a whole bunch of different areas as raising the costs. The Fed chief just came out and, explicitly stated that they're inflationary. This is exactly the opposite of what, people voted for. And so, I'm going to stay focused on trying to address those issues, to try to work across the aisle where we can to lower costs, to figure out how to improve government services, and even to work on government efficiency. I think that's one of the things that's so disappointing about what's going on. Everybody thinks the government could work better. In fact, there are a lot of people who've thought very deeply about how to make the government work better or more efficiently. What's happening, though, right now is that none of those people are being consulted as these, drastic meat cleaver cuts are being done. We're not going to balance the budget.
And they've been fired, not even consulted, but just ousted.
Yeah, ousted. I mean, we're not going to balance the budget by cutting the folks who are, crucial to fighting fires in this country, which is what happened. We're not going to balance the budget by cutting NASA's, science by 50%, which enables us to understand our climate and our weather and prevent natural disasters. We're making decisions that are profoundly unhelpful to the basic services that Americans expect, while hurting huge swaths of our district, of our state, of our country. It's so unnecessary, and we have to fight back.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about NASA, of course, being cut by 50%. You ran NASA in the Obama administration and have a lot of skin in that game. And it seems, obviously there's a huge conflict of interest in Elon Musk having anything to do with that. And seems to be a lot of self-dealing going on there too. But you articulate a little bit about why NASA is so important and what's going on with that. But do you want to say a little bit more about that?
Well, I think more broadly, American science is under attack right now, right? So people need to understand that what we're doing is making long-term damage to the American scientific and innovation establishment. We are hurting scientists. We are hurting innovators. We are hurting technologists and engineers. We are going to be firing thousands of these people. And it's just dumb, folks, right? Like America's economy depends on, being the innovation leader in the country. America's national security, our ability to compete against peer competitors like China, depends on maintaining the robust innovation enterprise that we can rightly claim as being the world's best for decades. And we are, for really no reason, trying to do as much damage to that enterprise as we possibly can. It is utterly mystifying, but it is utterly dangerous, more importantly, right? By cutting NOAA by 50%, you probably have seen the recent stories that say that NOAA is not going to be able to do the same level of weather forecasting that we've expected in the past. What are we going to do? Like forecast 1 out of every 2 hurricanes or 1 out of every 2 tornadoes, or Steve, you and I live in the Los Angeles area, and the National Weather Service forecasts around the fire weather, the high winds just before our January firestorm, was crucial to knowing what was potentially coming down the road, right? I don't even understand it, right? Because it's not going to balance the budget. It's going to hurt our national security. It's going to hurt our economic innovation engine. Like, what is the point of it? It seems
there's zero upside. It's incredibly flummoxing. It makes no sense.
I'm on the Armed Services Committee, and I know, how real our competition is with China, both economically and from a national security standpoint. They are laughing at us, right? They cannot understand what is happening, why we would be trying to take a meat axe to a thing that we can rightly take huge pride in. So, we've got to fight it. I am fighting it as a member of the Science Committee. I'm the vice-ranking member of the Science Committee. We are fighting back. We are going to try to defend these amazing engineers and scientists who are the ones who are going to be coming up with the cures for cancer, the cures for Alzheimer's, the next drugs that we need. These are the folks who are doing that work. It is just absolutely mind-boggling that we would take these steps.
Yeah, don't get me started on Health and Human Services and all that, but it's the same thing. And as we're recording this, tomorrow is Earth Day, and there has been reporting that Trump will mark the occasion by issuing executive orders challenging the tax exempt status of many climate orgs, such as Sierra Club, and we're already woefully behind on our climate goals. But I wanted to ask you because. And I want to hear more about, the wildfire mitigation work that you've done too. What can we do here in California or anywhere else to mitigate the damage that Trump is doing now, taking us backwards, especially when it comes to climate?
Well, the area that I have spent a lot of time in is the wildfire crisis. And, I think that we really need to get on top of this issue. It is a climate issue that hits people in their pocketbooks, right? Because as fire risk goes up, that is going to affect people's insurance, and that is affecting people's fire insurance across my district, across California. Yeah. And people's costs are going up. People want solutions. And the idea that, we should be cutting people who help manage our forests, or the scientists who help us understand fire behavior, or any of these different categories of people, is going in exactly the wrong direction. There is new news that the climate science of NOAA is being dismembered. There is now real news that the Earth science missions, the extended missions of NASA, they want to cancel those Earth science missions that help us understand what's going on our planet. And what I always say is, look, physics is going to keep happening, right? Just because Trump pursues an anti-science agenda that hurts the national security of our country does not mean that these physical processes are not going to continue. And we need to figure out a way to protect as much as we can. A lot of the incredible investments from the Inflation Reduction Act are being put into Republican states, and so a lot of those investments are ones that my colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle do not want canceled, terminated, diminished, decreased. They want to keep it because they're setting up.
They'd love to take credit for them too. Yeah.
But they want these things because they know that they're bringing good jobs across the country, right? New technologies, new manufacturing facilities. It's exciting. It's good news. In fact, if you look at the actual data, manufacturing across the country was ramping up last year in 2024. And of course, now some of that is being paused because of the uncertainty around these tariffs and all these other things, and the uncertainty around the IRA. all this great work that has been in work, maybe a little slower than we would like, but in work, is now getting disrupted. So it should make anybody, who wants a healthy planet for their kids really angry. I have 2 kids, they're 12 and 14, almost 13 and 14 now. And, part of why I'm doing this is because I want to build a society for our kids that works, that is sustainable, that is, gives them great jobs and gives them an opportunity to, get a house locally so they don't have to move to another state. These are the things that we all want as parents for our kids, and a healthy climate is one super important part of it. And, these terrible policy decisions that are being made will not stop the physics from occurring. It just makes us lose time, which is time that we don't have time to lose.
Yeah. Well said. I know you have to go. One last question. I have heard you refer to yourself as a pragmatic optimist, which I love because I consider myself that too. So what are you feeling optimistic about now? What's giving you hope amidst all of this right now?
The energy that we saw in Santa Clarita and in the Antelope Valley around these recent protests was unbelievable. It was good people in the community coming together to make clear that what they were seeing was unacceptable to them. And that gives me hope. That gives me energy. That gives me the oomph to, be as active as I possibly can in Washington, D.C. I think that we are going to see much more of that as time goes on and as the damage from these terrible policy decisions sinks in across the country. And so, like I said at that rally, we are better than this, right? We are a country that takes care of each other, values science, that values innovation, that takes care of the folks who are the most disadvantaged in the world. The Pope died this morning or last night.
Yeah.
And, some of his words about how we have to take care of the folks who need the most help, is stuff that I take to heart as someone who, considers him a very wise guy. So we have a lot of work to do ahead, but we can't lose hope. We have to keep working, and we have to know that, the long arc of justice, the arc of history bends towards justice, and that we can, ultimately get through this.
Yeah. I believe that too. And one thing that I love about the Pope is that he took Francis out after St. Francis of Assisi, which is my favorite prayer, and how I try to live my life is to be of service. And that's certainly what you're doing now too. So it's great to see you. Great to call you Congressman. And I was proud to play a little role in that.
A huge role.
And I'm looking forward to helping get you reelected as well. So thanks for being here.
Great to see you, Steve. Thanks for the time.
All right. So as a reminder, we have a call-in number. We want people to give us a call and let us know what they're doing in their community to make an impact. And they're always really inspiring. Our number is 818-824-4286. We got a call from someone who is working in Mission Viejo with a group of Orange County Democrats. Let's take a listen.
Hey guys, love your show. My name's I'm an organizer, grassroots in Mission Viejo, California. We this week, Wednesday, had our 11th week of protest at near Young Kim's office. We're not only protesting her, but protesting to get the return of democracy. Our name is South OC 4, the number 4. Democracy, South OC for Democracy. We meet every Wednesday from 12 to 2 p.m. Yesterday we had 110 people. We had the first in our Meet the Candidate series, running against Young Kim. Anyway, we're on Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, South OC for Democracy. And again, love your show, love your emails, love your Substacks, love it all. Thank you so much for being there to help us know what to do to fight back against the oligarchy and the fascists. Again, thanks. Love you guys. Bye.
Aw, that was amazing.
Thank you, Tasia. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, I love that so much. Every week in front of her office. Yes.
Yeah, 11 weeks now they've been doing this,
Phenomenal.
and to have that many people showing up, it's really, really exciting. And so thank you for people who aren't familiar with California. That's California's 40th congressional district, currently held by Republican Young Kim. That's a R+1 district, and one of our key opportunities to flip that seat. And California has an outsized role in flipping in control of the House and taking back control of the House in 26.
Yeah.
So I love that they're organizing early. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
And it just makes me really happy. Thank you so much for listening and for calling in.
Yeah. This is how we win, is these kinds of small neighborhood groups just showing up like that. It's just fantastic. Very inspiring. Bravo.
Small neighborhood group, but not so
But not so small.
To get that kind of turnout.
Yeah, no. That's what I'm saying. It's grown into this. I mean, this is the thing, is like anyone can say, you know what, we're starting a group and we're going to start organizing here in the community and we're going to do these weekly things, and look at how it's just growing. I mean, it's when people see, oh, you can do that and I can join that. It's just, it's contagious. It's wonderful. I'm very inspired. I think it's great. Wonderful job.
Courage is contagious.
Yeah, it sure is.
Keep the calls coming. Keep the work coming, most importantly.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget that all of the links for our actions are in the show notes, so don't just listen, click those links and take action. Please do subscribe, rate, and review on Apple, YouTube, wherever you find yourself listening, and share our show with your friends and family. Make sure they are taking action to help us win as well. If you are able to support our show on Substack, we'd be very grateful for that, and you'll get an ad-free version of the show to enjoy as well. We will be back next week with more Practivist Pods, so until then, remember, hope is an action.